2 of the NFL season is about to get underway. Skip Bayless is here. Lomas Brown is in studio, the big fella. And we also welcome in from New York, Stephen A. Smith. Can't wait
What
to
up?
get...
Whoa. You're in New York? I don't believe it. I think you're up in Green Bay to give your boy Aaron Rodgers a pep talk that he needs before this game. Am I right about that?
He doesn't need a pep talk. He doesn't need a pep talk from me. He knows what business he has to handle, but let's make it clear. I'm a native New Yorker, unlike some people I know. This is my home, so it is what it is.
Some people I know live in New York City as opposed to some other people I know.
Whatever.
Well, we're going to make this really easy because the Bears have lost 4 straight at Lambeau Field. So, Stephen A., who wins tonight, the Packers or the Bears?
Well, I think we all know who's going to win here. It's the Green Bay Packers. I mean, you know, they're 0-1 on the season. They started off wrong. They're not trying to go 0-2. They have one of the more prolific offenses in the game. And although the Bears' defense is stellar at the same, and opportunistic, I might add, at the same time, they are not the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, you opened the season in a tough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. You lost that game on your home turf. You've lost the last 2 games you've played on your home turf. I get all of that. But at the same time, you still have Aaron Rodgers, the best quarterback in the game. You don't really need a running game, as Aaron Rodgers so eloquently stated it. You got your Michael Finley. You got Greg Jennings, even though there's some trepidation as to whether or not he'll play tonight. You still have Jordy Nelson. You've got just a slew of offensive weapons from one of the best passers in the game. They will put up points, even though Chicago is opportunistic and they can make things happen, and they're starving to have a 1,000-yard wide receiver. You got Brandon Marshall, you got Hester, you got Bush and Forte, but you still have Cutler, who is not Aaron Rodgers. And as a result of that, it'll be tough because they're familiar with one another playing in the same division. But at the end of the day, Green Bay will prevail. It just understand that.
That's just the laws of nature will prevail, right? Green Bay just has to beat Chicago. That's what you're saying?
These are the things that happen. These are the things that happen, Skip Bayless.
Stephen A. Smith, my friend, I must confess to you, right out of the box, I don't have the guts to go against you today. Wow. I wish I could, but I don't have the courage to pick against the Green Bay Packers to lose a third straight game at Lambeau Field. I'll be rooting like crazy for the Chicago Bears, but I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game close. I'm going to pick the Packers to survive 24-21. And yet, I'm going to point out to you, as you remember, I did pick the Packers to win this division. I did pick the Bears to be a wild card team. You did too, as I recall. But here's the point. I have to see it to believe it with these Bears because I didn't see enough last week against Indianapolis. What I don't want to see tonight right out of the box is Jay Cutler throwing a pick 6 from his own 3-yard line as he did to somebody named Jarrell Freeman, a CFL refugee starting in his first year in the NFL, an inside linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. A walk-in touchdown in the second series of the game to put Indy ahead 7-0. It can't happen at Lambeau Field. Jay Cutler cannot go 1 for his first 10 as he did last Sunday against the Colts and get away with it. Alex Smith was flawless against your Packers last Sunday at Lambeau. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the visiting 49ers had 0 turnovers. That's the only way the Bears can do this tonight. And again, not sure I quite trust it. Even though, Stephen A., I'm going to make a strong case here. This is a huge opportunity for the Chicago Bears to psychologically knock out your Green Bay Packers because a third straight home loss, including the playoff loss to the Giants, would be psychologically devastating tonight. So you know what it reminds me of? It's just like Dallas at Giants on opening Wednesday night. It's that same kind of interdivision opportunity. So I'll be rooting for the Bears. I hope they win.
Here we go.
But maybe Lomas Brown can go one more step for me.
Well, before Lomas speaks, stop hedging your bets. Stop talking so much that we can't tell whether you picked the Packers or the Bears. You said you picked the Packers to win. You gave the score. Why can't you zip it from there? You know why you can't? So if Chicago turns around Atlanta records an upset, you can sit there and say, I told you this would be a big day for them. This would be a big game for them. You're always hedging your bets.
I never hedge my bets. I even picked the
Yes, you
score,
do.
unlike you. What's your score, oh Nostradamus?
Uh-oh.
My score is Green Bay 30, Chicago 19.
19?
Wow.
Well, you got them
Yeah.
covering the 6-point spread.
Well, let's look at the
Yeah.
circumstances. Can we look at the circumstances first? I'm going
Yes,
with
we
Chicago. I'm
Yeah,
going
Lomas
with the
has
Bears.
got it.
I'm going to tell you why, Stephen A. I'm going to look at the circumstances. You got these guys going into a short week. Just got through playing on Sunday. So you got a short week they're going into. Green Bay is coming off a physical loss to the San Francisco 49ers.
That's
got
a
a
good
few
point.
guys
I like that.
banged up. Anytime you got a short week, it's a lot harder for the team coming off the more physical week to recover. You got Chicago, just like they're the little brothers. They've been slapped around the last 4 meetings by Green Bay. It's time for the little brother to rise up and slap the big brother back. Jay Cutler said I love the comments that Jay Cutler had yesterday. They're real convincing that these guys are ready to take it to the next step. And they know, Stephen A., they know if they don't beat Green Bay, the NFC North is going through Green Bay. And the Bears are the only obstacle right now. I don't think Detroit is right there right now. Definitely Minnesota's out the picture. So it's those two teams, and I think they're ready to take this step up to the next level. I really do.
Haven't you talked enough? What do you want now?
Well, I have a question for both of you, and I just need simple answers so I can get to my point. I don't need a sermon, okay? How important is protecting Jay Cutler for the Chicago Bears to come out victorious
Now
tonight?
Cindy's raising her hand.
I am, because I have a point to this. Jay Cutler against Don Capers' defense since 2009, 12 interceptions, only 6 touchdowns.
No, that doesn't mean sacks. but-
Skip,
No,
Skip
but
and
that's...
Lomas, do you need to protect Jay Cutler?
Oh,
Yes or no?
absolutely. Absolutely, he has to be protected.
Well, I told you I didn't want a sermon. Of all the things,
Wait, I didn't get to answer.
Right.
of all the things that the Chicago Bears did in this offseason, I like Mike Tice. I'm a fan of Mike Tice. I like the fact that he's their new offensive coordinator. Lovie Smith's butt on the line. You get to the playoffs 3 times in 9 years. There's no job security for him, so there's a level of urgency. But of all the improvements they've made, the one thing they didn't improve upon was their offensive line. He was on suicide watch last year, the way they gave him no protection. They didn't draft anybody for their offensive line in the draft. And on top of it all, the only person they acquired in the offseason was some dude, what's his name? Chilo Rachel from San Fran, whatever his name is. He wasn't worth much. So, I mean, that's the best you can do.
Now, wait a minute.
Still have
They did get Gabe
protection
Creamy
issues.
back at right tackle, their first-round pick of 2 years ago. You got to give him that.
I understand.
Plus,
I give them that
Stephen A.,
much, but I'm
plus what-
saying the question is involving their offensive line, their
Right.
ability to protect Cutler. And since he opened his mouth, if nothing else, I'm expecting Clay Matthews at least to step up and get his hands
I'm
on
going to tell you how they're going to help him out. They're going to run the ball. They're going to balance it out. They have to
Bush
run
and
the ball.
Forte, okay.
To me, they're one of the most balanced teams in the NFL. They got Brandon Marshall to add to their
They're very
receiving
good.
core, but they're going to run the ball. They have to. They can't drop Jay Cutler back 40, 50 times and expect him not to get hit. That's Green Bay's problem. That's their problem right now, lack of balance. But I think Chicago is a well-balanced team.
Yeah, and the difference is, Stephen A., this time, little brother, as Lowe puts it, has 6 feet 5 inches at one receiver and 6 feet 3 inches at the other receiver. I'm talking about Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, the rookie. That's a new deal for Jay Cutler. Now he has legit
agree with
targets that he can throw jump balls to in ways that he couldn't before with Devin Hester and Earl Bennett and Johnny
Skip.
Knox.
Well, Skip, if that's the case, how come you didn't pick Chicago to win the division?
I just told you I'm going to have to see it to believe it.
Oh,
I have
I'm gonna
not
have
seen
to
it yet.
see. I'm going to have to see.
Well, we have been watching
Oh,
these teams play
please.
against one another since 1921, and the Packers have won 4 straight in the series, and they'll try to make that 5 tonight. It's not the only NFL game that is hot enough to talk about here at the top of the show. While the Packers chase that first victory on the season, the Eagles have it, but it came against the Browns, so there's still a lot of question marks, and Michael Vick is still answering questions and responding with comments like this. He told the NFL Network, quote, 2 weeks in a row against Pittsburgh and New England, my mindset was just to play cautiously and not get hurt and get through the preseason to the regular season. And I just told myself, I can't play like that. I can't play with so many different things on my mind. If the good Lord don't want you out there and you're going to sprain an ankle or tweak your thumb, that's what's going to happen. Go out there and play lights out. That's why we have backups. Stephen A., what do you make of Seven's comments?
Well, the one good part about it is that he seems to be hell-bent on listening to himself and playing his game as opposed to listening to all of the people in his ear and trying to please everybody, particularly as it pertains to him making sure that he kind of maintains health. But at the same time, his words are not consistent with his play. Because when he gets out on the field, you know, the one thing in terms of being cautious during the preseason, that's certainly not how he looked in game one or week one of this season against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I will say that I hold Andy Reid just as accountable as Michael Vick because you allowed him to drop back to pass 56 times. So that definitely is a problem. And that's something that needs to be alleviated. But I do think it's important that as the season progresses, we hear a Michael Vick that becomes a bit defiant, because today it may be defiant towards the people in his ear outside the Eagles organization. Tomorrow it may be defiant towards everybody, which I think would be a good thing, because what he needs to do is get back to balling and really just playing his game. Modify it a little bit, learning to slide instead of dive, learning to run out of bounds instead of staying in bounds and taking those hits. But outside of that, he just needs to be himself, because that is where he's at his best, and he needs to really stomach and absorb the reality that when Skip brings up a Nick Foles or somebody else brings up a multitude of individuals in this league that are better quarterbacks than he has appeared to be for the last year and a half, by and large, it's because they have played better than Michael Vick, because Michael Vick hasn't been himself, and he needs to get back to instilling fear in his opponents. And the best way for him to do that is to just play his game. Be a little cautious in terms of sliding instead of diving, but just to play his game and stop worrying about trying to become a pocket passer. That's what he needs to do.
Stephen A., have you been one of those people in his ear?
Well, we've had a couple of conversations. That's all. Over the last few months, we've had a couple of conversations. If that counts as being in his ear, so be it. I don't think it does. I just think it's pointing out the obvious, because what I wanted to skip are the hits that he's taken to the head and to his ribs. That's what I'm monitoring more than anything else. But I'm not qualified to tell him how to play the game of football.
Didn't you tell him he needed to run more?
Well, I'm saying you need to run more so you're not standing back in the pocket taking less hits. That's not really telling you how to play. That's telling you to be careful. Just like I told Deshaun Jackson when Dante Robinson for Atlanta almost paralyzed him. I said, look, man, you're smaller than me. I don't want to see you over the middle anymore. I'm not telling him how to play football. I'm basically giving him advice on how to save his life. To me, that's two different things. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to say this again. I'm feeling sorrier and sorrier for Michael Vick. Some people fear that he's going to wind up on the couch because he gets hurt. I fear he's going to wind up on the shrink's couch because he's turning into a mental basket case. Once again, worse than ever, he's suffering an identity crisis all the way up to age 32 that he's fought for his whole life. Am I a pocket passer? Am I a passer? Am I a runner? Am I a slider or a diver? Am I a broken field touchdown waiting to happen, or should I just take 7 yards at a time? He's talked himself and listened himself into oblivion. I've never heard such a stream of consciousness coming out of one quarterback week after week as I've heard over the last month from Michael Vick. Every day it's a new theme, it's a new vow, we're going to Super Bowl or bust, I'm going to win it for Andy, I'm going to win it for his deceased son, God bless him. And Stephen A., I don't know who he is anymore because I'm afraid he doesn't know. He's stuck playing for a coach who wants him to be badly a pocket passer and an accurate pocket passer. And I'm not sure it's in his genetics to be that guy, even though we saw a couple of games 2 years ago right out of the box that were sensational pocket passer games. The one at Washington on Monday night was just the greatest Monday night game I've ever seen any individual play before. Since then, he's slowly gone downhill.
He annihilated the Redskins.
It was just a tour de force, but can't take the beating. He wears down mentally and physically over time. So, Stephen A., I'm with your point. Just let your instincts take over and take off and run. But really, can you take that kind of beating when, as you say, he's about 5'11" and slightly built, 185, 90 pounds? I just don't think he can.
Well, wait a minute. Skip, when he was quarterbacking in Atlanta, that's my point. He wasn't taking a beating. That's why I said go ahead and run. He was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He wasn't taking a beating the way he's been taking a beating since he's been in Philadelphia.
And got hurt and was gone for a long time.
Yeah. I understand that when he hurt his leg.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about rib shots, head shots. That's an entirely different thing. In the game of football, I mean, you can always get hurt when somebody's trying to tackle you and they're tackling your leg. You can twist the ankle. You can twist the knee. Those kind of things happen. This dude is suffering concussions, broken ribs, all of that stuff. And those are the kind of things that you got to monitor even more so.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Low way in.
And that could be prevented. To me, what's so shocking about what he's saying is shocking because he's using the word cautiously out there. And that's a word that's associated with football that you never use.
That's true.
Look, I work with high school, college, and pro linemen. And what I do before every game they play, I tell these guys, keep your feet moving. Now, what I'm telling the linemen to do, that means to me, stay aggressive. Don't be a spectator. Don't stand around piles looking and spectating. Always be moving, always trying to get on another block. And that's what you have to do in football. Some of the worst injuries I've seen playing have been when guys have been lackadaisical, or guys have been sitting in, not going their full speed, not at their full range. And that's when guys get hurt. I've never heard the coach say, okay, go out there, but be careful now. I don't want you to do this and that. Every coach telling you go balls out. Just go out. Just go all for it. Leave it all out on the field. I just don't think, I agree. I think he's doing too much thinking. I think it's too much of a thought process. Go back to your Atlanta days. React. That's what you're taught to do as a football player. React to things.
That's what I'm saying.
Don't think about it. React.
And Skip, please understand, that's not telling him how to play the game in terms of the nuances of the game. There are football aficionados far more qualified than me. I know you don't think any of them are more qualified than you, but
true.
I'm honest enough to acknowledge there are those more qualified than me. All I'm trying to say is that in the end, when I've walked into locker rooms, because I've covered a lot of Vick's games over his career, when I walked into the locker room, after these guys have played against him, they talk about the fear, literally, and they've used the word fear. When this dude escapes the pocket, even before he gets into the open field, when he escapes the pocket and you don't know what he's going to do, it scares the living mess out of them. And that's what I'm saying he needs to get back to, because he's too small just to be dropping back to pass. And he's there taking hits, even though he lets go of the football. He's getting popped play after play after play. That is not going to sustain the career of Michael Vick. It's going to cut it short, and more importantly, it's going to make him incredibly ineffective.
Okay, I hear everything you just said, but bottom line, in that offense, they need to give the ball or get the ball more to LaShawn McCoy. We've agreed on that from the start.
Yes, we
and
have.
Number two, those receivers, even though Macklin's got some issues now with the hip pointer, those receivers are so explosive and dangerous that Stephen A., if they're going to have a legitimate shot to go to the Super Bowl this year, he has to be able to get the ball from the pocket to those two little receivers consistently to win big games. You know it, and I know it.
We'll all be watching on Sunday. Michael Vick takes a 1-1 career record into that game against the Ravens, where he has thrown 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and has no rushing touchdowns. Ahead on the program, a Hall of Famer in John Madden had some very interesting things to say about the new sensation in the league, RG3, calling him